those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Monday episode of Running Point on our new time slot. We are here from 1 to 2, and it is All Hallows Eve, so it's spooky season for sure. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartow. We're going to recap all of the playoff action over the weekend on all sports fronts because we had football, we had volleyball, and we had boys soccer over the weekend, all getting some hardware. Obviously, football getting their playoffs started, and then volleyball and boys soccer getting district championships underway.
Exciting times definitely are underway as we get into regionals for a lot of the soccer teams.
I made a bad wardrobe decision. Every time I move, you're going to hear this in the microphone.
Little brushing sound.
It's like the old baggy pants that kids used to always wear in the 90s. But every time they took a step, you just heard. Weren't sneaking up on anybody. What?
A throwback.
Weren't sneaking up on anybody. This is like weather fit though. It was kind of rainy today. I was like, I don't want to get wet, so you make sacrifices. What can I say?
It's what it is. But I mean, we have a lot of results to get to as well of the upcoming or from the past weekend, I should say.
We sure do, Ty. We had 21 football games on the network on Friday. Let's go over the scores that kind of came in. We'll start with Garfield. They beat Conneaut 48-21. The G-Men move on the road. They get this victory.
Yeah, it's a nice win for Garfield too, and they did it how they've been doing it all season and battling a team from the Ashtabula County area too, and coming away on top too. So big win for YSN, and it sets up a very intriguing matchup in Division 5 now.
They did everything Conneaut did. They just did it better. It came down to that.
Coach Moser executed well.
We talked about it there. Both teams had a similar game plan, similar styles of football. It just, and I said this on Friday, when one runs it better than the other, it becomes kind of a double-edged sword for the other team. So Garfield just ran that style of offense a lot better than Conneaut did, and that was obviously the difference. 48-21. Garfield gets to win. They move on to round 2, and we will get to their opponent a little bit later when we get to that score. But it's one that people have been looking forward to. We'll just tease with that. If you don't know, I don't know if anyone comes into this show not knowing what the matchups are this week already. I mean, I don't know. Have you been living under a rock? Because the matchups come out almost instantly.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes some people, though, they're busy. They're busy. They're not sports nuts like us all the time.
We're not making fun of you. We're here for you. This is what our show is. Valley Christian, they have no troubles at all. No rust from the week off. 53-0. They take care of Trinity at Boardman High School.
Yeah, just brush that dirt off their shoulders and move on. Behind Sir Mixon and company, it's going to be a tough Valley team to stop until we What's that?
Start calling him Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yeah, I know Sir Mixon is definitely what Coach Hake and company like to call him too, and he's definitely a beast over there.
And with him, Gurley, and Lindsay, that backfield is ridiculous for Valley Christian. They flexed their muscles, and they showed no rust after losing that Week 10 game at all. It was like as if they came in with 10 weeks of games under their belt.
losing it as that it was off of their schedule too. They didn't lose a game yet this season. Right. Actually, 10-0 now. They finally got their 10th win on the season that they were looking for.
Not enough for them. They'll look for their 11th win next week. Dalton, we talked about their pedigree, their playoff pedigree. They shined and they flexed their playoff pedigree on Friday, 62-7. They beat Jackson Milton and move on.
Yeah, I mean, hold your heads up high. Jackson Milton had a great season too, highlighted by some wins there in the end of beating your rival McDonald for the first time in a long time. 7-3 record, nothing to be ashamed of, and a lot to build from going into next year.
Absolutely, and still one of the better records that you guys have had in your football program for quite some time. So we see Coach Broad's doing something right in Jackson Milton. He's definitely got that Blue Jays team on the rise, and we'll expect more from him next year. And Alex Schiavi, he's only going into he's going into his junior year, so he'll be good. Everything will be good next year for Jackson Milton. They still have a lot to look forward to. Brookfield, they went in and they beat Pymatuning Valley easily, 48-16. No harm, no foul for the Warriors. They're still on that roll that they've been on ever since they lost in week 1. And I feel like that's the last time I'm going to mention week 1 because I feel like that storyline is dead.
And
the fact they lost to Urson in week 1, just forget about it now.
They're set up with Downton now too. It's a 4 versus 5 matchup, and Downton a 9-2 team on the season. Brookfield now 10-1. This should be a really good one. Downton a perennial team inside these playoffs, but I think, like we said, and this is a team that's gotten up now, bumped up to Division 6. They handled Jackson Milton pretty well, but this is a different animal in the Brookfield Warriors.
Yeah, the Brookfield's a new monster entirely. Since we'll keep with our Halloween theme. Monster entirely. We'll go to a really competitive game. Salem fell behind early to Canton South, tried to make a comeback. They couldn't, and they fall to the old EBC rival Wildcats 28-21 to end their season.
Yeah, unfortunately, too, and it was the case of the Salem losses that we had seen all season long is where just late in the games, too, just couldn't pull off that late score, that late stop that they needed to get some victories. But Canton South, credit goes out to them. They were able to hold Salem, and they kept them at bay from that comeback.
I believe this was Salem's second lowest score of the season, actually, with 21. They were held to 17 by Crestview back in week 1, but I think every other game had been higher than this. So, props to that Canton South defense, because if I went into that game saying Salem only allowed 28 points, law of averages say Salem wins that game with the way their offense has been playing this year.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's just why we play the games. That's why we say any given Friday, right?
So that was kind of a surprising score. Not like surprising because Canton South won. Obviously, they were the favorites being the higher seed. But surprising that it was 28-21 instead of, a higher scoring game or something like that. Usually when Salem struggles, it's because they can't stop teams, not because they can't keep up with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, congratulations are in order to all the seniors from that Salem squad, Jackson Johnson Company, and all those seniors that are moving on, some to the next level, some to college ranks, some to trade schools. But whatever it is you decide to do, we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors here at YSN.
How about Struthers, Ty? On Friday, we said Struthers was one of the hottest teams on the YSN family of football teams, and they did not disappoint. 49-14, they steamroll Edgewood in what should have been seed-wise a competitive matchup. Struthers said not so fast.
This sets up a matchup between two schools that I've really liked. I've really liked the style of Struthers though this season, and I've really liked what Coach Bayek has had to say, and all the times I've gotten a chance to talk to him throughout the season. And all the chirping and all the voices that you hear when the things were going wrong too, able to kind of hone it in and stay within that team and stay within those boys. And he talked about how the boys helped him keep his head up during it as well as he kept their head up. And I like that family atmosphere. I like what Coach Bayek's doing over there. And this is a 1 versus 8 matchup in that region, but it's going to be a tough one because this is going to be a very tough out for this 8-seeded Struthers Wildcats team.
I still can't believe Struthers started the season 1-4 the way that they're playing right now. In those games, we always talk about it. Those were heartbreaker losses. And like you said, this is going to be I think maybe one of the best 1-8 matchups that we see on Friday with Struthers. The way they're playing right now, playing better than an 8 seed. They're the 8 seed because of those first 4 weeks of the season, not because of how they're playing right now. And those kind of teams can be dangerous when they flip the switch in the middle of the season.
They learned how to win. I mean, they took all those late game losses and all those OT losses, and they learned how to win. And they were able to do it over the course of a season. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer for teams, but a lot of these younger guys have caught on, and that's exactly what Coach Bayek is saying. But, I mean, this offense, too, highlighted by guys like Alec Grazib. I mean, the dude's a dog. He's a dog that's a cat, right? He's top cat on that team. And, I mean, you just see the highlights he had against Edgewood, too. He was one of our top 3 plays of the week, and you could see why. He was putting kids on ice. You thought it was an ice rink out there instead of a football field.
They were not playing at Rockefeller Center. They were playing in Struthers, but great win for the Wildcats, and they move on to the next round where they will meet up with West Branch. South Range, they did what South Range is supposed to do in the playoffs. They got the win, 35-6 over Liberty. And they move on to the next round. The first seeded South Range Raiders trying to just do what everyone has expected. All season it feels like maybe after week 6, it was the storyline where South Range was already talking about what they're going to do in the playoffs because it was kind of a foregone conclusion that they were gonna get a good seed. So this is the time for the Raiders to shine, and they did that on Friday, 35-6.
And it sets up Garfield South Range.
We're going to talk about this. This is a matchup that has happened before in the playoffs. It used to be actually a playoff matchup that popped up quite often with Garrettsville Garfield in South Range. And now we get it reinstated into another playoff matchup with these two teams. I think the last time they met each other in the playoffs was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, I'm sure the comments will let me know. But I believe it was 19 when they last met with each other in the playoffs. So a reinstallment of a playoff rivalry on Friday night between the top seeded South Range Raiders and the 8 seeded Garrettsville Garfield G-Men.
And no doubt 2 of the better programs, I think, in the YSN network, area and our coverage map too, as far as football is concerned. Coach Moser, Coach Yeagley, 2 of the best to do it as well. The buy-in from these kids and the culture and the community that surrounds these programs is infectious, and you can see it. And this is going to be a fun matchup. It's going to be another one of those 1 versus 9 matchups, actually, in Garrettsville Garfield being the 9 seed. But I tell you what, this is going to be probably, I think, I would expect this to be one of the more competitive games that South Range is going to play on their entire season, too. I know they've handled a lot of teams well, but I expect this Garrettsville Garfield team, not saying that they're going to win, but I expect this Garrettsville Garfield team to push the South Range team, especially with the size and the strength that they bring on their team as well.
Yeah, more so than their offense this year, South Range's defense has really taken that step up and putting the team on their shoulders. I mean, last year they were scoring 50 points, 49 points almost every time out. This time they're scoring. I'm not saying that their offense isn't good, but like when they 35, hey, we're going to hold the team to 6. I mean, even when they gave up 5 turnovers, their defense held the Struthers to 13. So this defense is up for another big task in Garfield. But one of the things that Garfield has to do is keep the defense on their toes, because we've seen what happens to teams that are a little bit one-dimensional when they play South Range in the past, and it hasn't gone too well for that offense. So Garfield's got to find some stuff to do to switch things up and make sure they don't become predictable.
A lot of good wrestlers on both of these teams as well that will participate in wrestling during the winter season. So you're going to see a lot of battling, not only in the tackling department from your linebackers and crew, but you're going to see a lot of battles in that line play because of just how athletic and agile these linemen are, complementing them with strength too on both sides. It's going to be fun to watch these two teams go at it because there's a lot of just phenomenal athletes on these teams.
Wrestling season is not too far away.
I'm sure Gary Altizer is rubbing his hands together.
He's ready for his Wednesday daily talks about wrestling that we'll have in the winter.
He loves it, and I love hearing it from Gary too, the wrestling expert and the
wrestling Wednesdays with Gary. Coming to a screen near you soon. Next, Mooney beat Edison on the road. They went to Edison. They kind of proved their merit, 45-14. The closest this game got was about 21-7, and then Mooney ran away with it after that. Their offense just way too much for the Wildcats to handle.
It was a case of what I've been saying about Mooney all season too is that you just give them a seat at the table and they're dangerous, and that's exactly what Mooney did. One of the few upsets that we've seen, like bigger upsets marginally that we've seen in our regions. And now, you look at the next bracket, the next part of it, they're set up with Creston Norwayne. That's a winnable game, in my opinion, for the Cardinal Mooney Cardinals. And you win that one, you get the winner of South Range Garfield. And either team that comes out of that one, if Mooney is, fingers crossed because they're a YSN team, if Mooney's able to pull out that win against Norway, that set up a really intriguing matchup either way. If it's
a all YSN regional semi too,
we would hope so. That's what I'm hoping for, and I think Mooney can do it. Looking at the way they played, that was the one thing, right? We said Mooney's defense is been able to compete with every team that they've pretty much played with all season. That offense has been the question mark. There's no questions to be had about that offense.
And they went up against the Edison defense and had not given up a lot of points at all this year.
Most points this season that they gave
by far, Ty. I mean, they hadn't given up more than, I believe, 14 this season to this point. And Mooney came in, had a really good game plan, executed it really well. Ashton O'Brien played really well for them, and they win 45-14 over Edison.
It's going to be an interesting matchup, too, as Mooney has one win away from a regional semi.
Interesting. We saw a lot of these kind of games that both offenses had a little bit of success and were able to move the ball on Friday. This one wasn't close, but both offenses had their moments. West Branch obviously had a lot more moments, winning 52-20 over Field.
Yeah, and you know what? Credit Field, because they actually played a solid game despite the very big mismatch too. Able to actually score a decent amount of points. So credit Field for making it to the playoffs and having a decent showing. But yeah, West Branch did what West Branch has always done, and that's putting up a ton of points. And this is the 1-8 matchup that I said I'm very excited for. It's West Branch against Struthers, and I really like the way that West Branch operates. Drew DeShields has been awesome all season long, but this is a Wildcats team that I feel like is a very, very tough out for West Branch, who you got to say is the favorite seed going into this, being the 1 seed going into it. But I tell you what, it's one of those like 60-40 matchups for me. I don't discount the Wildcats and what they can bring to the table in this one in the slightest.
And that was the scariest moment of the night was when we got the text in the group chat that Drew DeShields had to leave this game due to an injury. We have no idea what the status of him is, but we definitely wish the best for him.
And that's the big
hopefully he can be healthy for this week 12 game.
If he's not a participant, not that West Branch can't win, but that definitely, I feel like, moves the chains to more of a 50-50 ball game then.
Bawalisov came in and played admirably in the backup role. You can find an interview with him on the story recap from West Branch's win over Field on ysnlive.com. Michael Janaki did a really good job catching up with him and Coach Cooper and great post-game interviews from West Branch. Beaver Local, they had a fight. They had to fight Coventry tooth and nail. This game was a lot closer than the score indicates because, again, with Beaver Local, they just found like extra steam in the fourth quarter to make this game actually end up being a runaway. But they were down at halftime to Coventry, 23-21. They actually won 56-35 over the Comets. You're muted.
It's going to set up a Beaver Local Canton South matchup now. And yeah, Beaver Local definitely wants to figure a couple things out defensively, you figure, before going into that Canton South matchup. Canton South going to be a dangerous opponent for Beaver Local. They beat Salem when Salem beat Beaver Local earlier this season. Right. Of course, you take that for what it's worth, take it with a grain of salt, but kind of two different looking teams after a full course of a regular season. But it's going to be a tough challenge for Beaver Local, no doubt. And they're definitely going to want to shore some things up defensively. Offense is there. It's been there the last few weeks, but you definitely don't want to get into a dogfight with the Wildcats.
Don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can't back this up. But after seeing some of these scores now that are over 50, I would wager that Beaver Local is the top scoring team in the YSN family if we did the numbers.
They very well could be, too, considering the amount of points that they've been putting up the last like 6 or 7 weeks.
I think this is like their 6th game that's over 50 of the season.
It's pretty crazy. They also have like a handful of 60-point games thrown in this year. Yeah, they've definitely been a potent offense.
And they only had 21 at halftime. So you look at that, that's 35 second half points put together by the Beavers.
They're going to be impressive too, as like I said, they're matched up with Canton South. Winner gets a trip to the regional semis.
We had 2 all NE8 matchups in the playoffs this week, and they were both pretty competitive. Gerard made some plays late to win 30-20 over Hubbard. The Indians advance.
Credit Hubbard too, because they played a way better game the second time around against Girard than they did the first time. And I think that was the biggest thing with Hubbard is, you always play to win, no doubt, but at the bottom line, you wanted to at least be competitive. You wanted to show what you can bring to the table against Girard. And I think there's definitely mutual respect to be given too. Hubbard definitely pushed Girard and made him go out there and earn it in week 11. And it's exactly what the Indians did, 30-20 in a victory.
Yeah. But in the end, I think 30 points was just too much for Hubbard to give up. They wanted to keep this game in the 20s at least. Obviously, they scored 20. But when that team gives up more than 20, it starts to get a little hairy for that offense. They haven't been able to score at that amount all season.
Girard's still finding ways to get points on the board, too, despite the injuries that they've had in their offensive department, but still putting points up on the board as they're going to advance to the next round.
This one was a thriller tie. Jefferson and Poland went down to the wire. Jefferson trailed. Poland scored first. Jefferson came back and scored a would have been a game-tying touchdown if they went for the extra point. They went for 2. Took the lead. Grant Hitchcock ran in himself, I believe, for 2. 14-13. And then down the stretch, Poland driving. They get a little stalled. I believe it was at the 27? That'd be the 23 for a 40-yard field goal. So they're at the 23-yard line, 11 seconds left. And they spiked the ball. They have 11 seconds. I thought they could have afforded to try to get one more play to the out of bounds, either field goal kicker a little bit closer. With 11 seconds, you could probably get one play off to the boundaries. They elected to kick the field goal from 40, and it was actually a pretty good kick. It had the distance. It just went a little bit, I believe, to the left of the upright, and they missed the field goal. Jefferson took over the ball. Poland had no timeouts left, so it was pretty much a kneel down from there.
Congratulations to Jefferson, too, and playing in front of their home fans for the first time. And the home crowd was into it. They gave them a heck of a game, and they pulled out a victory. You feel for Poland, though, too. I mean, on the opposite end for that, Poland, they wanted to go in. They wanted to play upset, similar to how Jefferson upset them, and they came that close, too. And, it's a heartbreaker in the end of it because you were right there. You had victory in reach, but Jefferson's going to be the better team on this night. Don't hang your head in shame. Poland's still a great season. A lot of guys coming back next year, and there's definitely a lot of learning to be had. They played one of the best schedules, I think, locally as far as teams are concerned. And, they're going to take those experiences and they're going to be able to learn from it going forward. But it sets up a very interesting matchup between a couple 8-3 teams. Girard got Jefferson in Jefferson earlier this season, but it's a chance now for the Falcons to beat. Now that would be 5 of the teams inside the NE8 if they're able to beat Girard.
The Falcons offense has to figure out how to score against Girard's defense because that was the issue the first time around. They only scored 7 points. They held Girard to 26, which is pretty good, and that was a healthier Girard team too. So that was a pretty good defensive effort on Jefferson's part. They just couldn't find ways to score in that 26-7 loss to the Indians earlier on the season. You look at this game also. Another factor of that field goal, by the way, was third down. So you could argue that they wanted to kick it on third down in case something went wrong with the snap. They could try to spike it real quick and still get another field goal attempt off. I don't know if 11 seconds would be enough to botch a snap, spike the ball, and then get relined up for another play. Who knows? But that's one of those 50-50 calls from a coaching staff with 11 seconds left. It's like, do we risk it and then not get out of bounds and then the game's over because we didn't get out of bounds? Do we trust our players enough to know that you have to get out of bounds or drop the ball at that point? And they just elected to not even put that into fruition and take the field goal. And it wasn't a bad kick. So I'm not going to sit here and say it was a terrible decision because their field goal kicker, it wasn't one of those ones where their kicker couldn't make a 40-yarder. He had a really good kick on that attempt. So, hello, Ronald. Thank you for popping it.
Rotuno? If it's one of the Rotunos I know of, I think there's a Rotuno in Mooney, isn't there? There's a Rotuno
Sure is.
that goes to Mooney, if I'm not mistaken.
Rangelina Rotuno graduated last year, was one of the best setters that Mooney's program has ever had.
So, yeah, I was gonna say that Rotuno name definitely rings a bell.
There's definitely a young Rotuno coming up. So that name is ringing very strong in Cardinal Mooney. We thank you for popping in.
We're definitely hoping for Lisbon Beaver Local to get that win against Canton South, though, because if Beaver Local is able to take care of business, then we can have an all YSN regional semifinal too, because we're guaranteed one out of Gerard Jefferson.
Coach Modeski saying that is our cousin.
That's awesome too.
So,
got a chance too. We're going to be hearing from Coach Modelski here in a few weeks as well.
Very soon, basketball is on the horizon. We have to talk about Louisville girls, and we'll definitely get to Coach Modelski. Like you said, in the next couple of weeks to try to preview that Louisville Rockets season. Jefferson moves on. They'll play Gerard in the next round of the playoffs. Ty, this is the game you were at. Austintown Fitch, their offense did not miss a beat. 56-34. This is another game where both offenses definitely had their moments, but Fitch just had a lot more of them. 56-34 win over Mayfield.
Jamel James put a one-man show on for the Falcon crowd.
I'm trying to see how many records they can break in one season.
I think he heard that Mike Ackelson was excited to see him, and he was in the press box, so he put on a show for him. No, because I mean, it was like you said, Ed, they were just breaking records every single week, and I was talking about it. It's like DJ Williams held the rushing record for 14 days. The rushing record previous to DJ Williams, Antoine Harris held for, I think, for the better part of 8 years. DJ Williams holds it for 14 days.
14 days.
James is like, all right, I'll take that.
I'll take that off your hands real quick.
305 yards rushing for James, 5 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown for 6 total. He broke the single game touchdown record at 6, with 1 receiving, 5 rushing, and he also broke the single game rushing record at 305. So 2 records broken against Mayfield, and that was the difference maker because Mayfield's offense was able to get some scores against Fitch, and they were throwing body shots, but the Falcons had the knockout punch because every time the ball touched Jamel's hands, he was able to take it to the house. Couple of breakaway scores, one play scores that were 50-yard plus touchdowns.
All right, DJ, it's your turn.
He was actually too. DJ was on the sidelines too. I think they were just healing him up too. He had a little bit of injury concern after that Raiders game against Harding, but you get both of them back in this upcoming matchup against Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's. First off, it feels like you need them both too because that just helps out so much. But it's nice to see that James and DJ Williams both having 300-yard games before this game against Akron St. V's.
So yeah, we have some Louisville connections in the comments with
the Lowville, the Mooney, all the connections too with one another too. That's why we say all these schools, we're just one big happy family.
One big happy family, quite literally.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they're all under the YSN family too. We're just all one big happy family.
So Fitch moves on St. Vincent St. Mary next week, right?
Yeah, this upcoming Friday. It should be interesting. They'll be hosting St. V's, the higher seed Falcons, but not going to be easy in the slightest. Should be a fun one, no doubt.
Canfield's offense got tested in this game, 27-10. They get the win over New Philadelphia, but it wasn't an easy matchup at all.
New Philadelphia is a team that always seems to push Canfield. I mean, I know there's that last year or 2021, last year where they beat them 35-0. But the New Philadelphia prior to, I feel like, has always been a team that's been challenging for Canfield, similar to like the Dovers of the world. And speaking of which, They were able to beat Dover in an overtime loss similar to Canfield. So I kind of felt this was going to be a challenge for Canfield. But I think it's good that Canfield experiences this early on in the playoffs because that New Philadelphia team, like I said, not just Canfield, they were going to push pretty much anyone they played, I think.
Canfield advances into the playoffs, and I think that's I would have been shocked if they got beat round 1.
I would be shocked too, but this is also a very good Aurora Greenman team. That Aurora in Portage County is always one of the better football teams year in and year out. They're 8-3 this year after the playoff win against Cuyahoga Falls Valley Christian Academy. this is going to be an interesting game for Canfield too. Aurora is another tough opponent, but it's going to be a challenge for Canfield.
Actually, a pretty impressive win over a good CVCA team too.
It's a very good CVCA team, and that's because of Aurora too, 27-24 in a 10-7. Aurora, the 10 seed, winning that one. They're always a good football team. It's going to be another challenge for the Cards.
Okay, so this Ursuline game was close for a minute. It was 16-6, and it stayed like that for a little bit. Then the next score update we got, all of a sudden, it was like 28-6, and then boom, and it was Ursuline shot out of a cannon, and they win this game 43-12 over Hawken.
They were, they were done after a while, and Ursuline they put their foot down and they said, we've had enough of that.
Yeah,
it was close until it wasn't. Ursuline just speed runs away with it, and it felt like, some of the younger guys, the guys that haven't been there before, were getting acclimated with the playoffs, getting acclimated with the taste, the feel of it. But I felt like once second half came around, the younger guys were comfortable, and then the veterans, the guys that have been there, the guys that were on that run last year, was like, okay, here's what we got to do. They knew what to do. They kicked it into that next gear. They know what that next gear is like, how they have to kick into it to make those state title type runs. Able to do that, and the Irish convincing victory at the end.
Anthony Romo was able to get quite a few post-game interviews. You can find those on the Ursuline game recap at ysnlive.com. So make sure to go over to our website and check that out, as Romo always does a great job with his post-game interviews.
The Irish are set up now with a tough Talmadge team that just beat Villa Angela St. Joe's 21-7.
That was, we saw what Ursuline did to VASJ earlier this season. It was one of the more surprising scores of the year because I thought it would be a very competitive game, and Ursuline just came in and just wrecked them. So maybe there's something going on at VASJ that we didn't know about. But I was also surprised to see that this wasn't going to be a rematch. And props to Talmadge for knocking off Villa and the St. Joe's and setting up this matchup with Ursuline next week.
Yeah, I mean, Talmadge technically the higher seed, 6 versus 11. But yeah, Villa Angela St. Joe's always one of those dangerous teams when they're in the playoffs.
It's almost like because of the pedigree that VASJ has, it was almost one of those ones where it would have been an upset in some people's minds if Talmadge won that game. Same thing with Edison Mooney. Even though it wasn't, Edison was obviously the higher seed. They hosted, they were 10-0. It would have felt like an upset to a lot of people if Edison won that game.
Yeah. So, I mean, either way, Talmadge gets the win, and it should be interesting to see Talmadge Ursuline in round 2.
Absolutely. And we move on to the next score. Cheney, they got a battle against Alliance, too. They had to pull away late. A late score sealed the deal, 35-21. They beat the Aviators, who we've seen quite a bit on YSN this year. In that EBC, put up strong fights against Salem and West Branch. They actually beat Salem and then put up a good fight against West Branch this year. And they were not going down early. We said this would be a competitive game, and Cheney was able to do enough to win. It
was a very good Alliance team that they beat, too, in that. But Cheney was, I think, again, one of those cases because Cheney hasn't been there since they've reinstated. They were in there in 2020, but that was the COVID year. We really don't count that as much. But they've earned their way into the playoffs. This is like the first time, the butterflies are in the stomach. You're excited. And a lot of these guys, seniors too. And right. I think they had to kind of deal with those in that first half. And once they did, again, similar to what we saw in the last game we just talked about, Cheney got comfortable, it felt like, going into that second half. And once they got into that comfort zone, they started playing cowboy football once again. And once they play cowboy football, man, giddy up because they're taking off.
And another game where they just proved very disciplined. They didn't make any detrimental mistakes that cost them games. And once again, Cheney looking like a completely different team mentally than they were in seasons past.
The big thing is, too, Kenston was a 13 seed that upset the 4-seeded University School 40-33. We had our suspicions about that University School being a top 4 team. Kenston proved them wrong, but the big thing is for Cheney, because of that, Cheney being the 5 seed, they're now hosting the second round, which if things would have went chalk, they wouldn't have. So Cheney now gets another game at Rain Stadium where Kenston has to come to town.
That's going to be a tough place to play for Kenston.
No doubt. And it's huge for the Cowboys, too, trying to get themselves to a regional semi.
Alexa thought I was talking to her.
Oh, yeah. There's Alexa chiming in with her opinion.
Go to settings and then TV and video to get started.
Does Alexa have anything on the latest score updates?
He said to control video remote, go to settings.
Oh, well, I don't know why she would be chiming in with anything about a remote.
I don't know. I must have said one of the trigger words.
You might have.
On that note, let's take our first break of the day. Come back with more recaps and finals from the weekend on Running Point. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
I support police funding, securing our borders, and parental rights in education. I'm attorney Mark Hanai, the only Republican running for the 7th District Court of Appeals. I will always follow the law.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mark Hanai judge. Dave Johnson, chairman.
Fall is in the air. The kids are back to school, crowds are cheering for the home team, and Myers Family Insurance is prepped for another crazy Medicare season. Every year there's changes, some big, some small, so it's important to have a conversation to make sure your plan is going to meet your expectations for the coming year. Give our team a call today to schedule your annual review.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance or visit us on the web. Check us out online at myersfamilyins.com.
Locally owned and operated, Sheely's relaxed shopping experience means browsing and lounging is always encouraged.
Find Flex Deal and more at Sheely's Furniture and Appliance, because the best things in life happen at home.
I'm Mark Hanai, a conservative Republican. I believe in family values, the Second Amendment, and our Constitution. Vote for the only Republican running for the 7th District Court of Appeals. Protect your rights. Vote Hanai for judge.
Are you such a good driver? Because
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. As always, Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartell as we continue our playoff recap of the weekend. And we left off with Cheney beating Alliance 35-21. Next final to come in, Canton Central Catholic. They proved too much for Mineral Ridge, who had a really good season. But that Crusader team plays a brutal schedule, and they kind of proved it 35-7. They get the win over Mineral Ridge. Muted.
Nice win for the Crusaders, but Mineral Ridge too. Nothing to be ashamed of. Coach Shaner and company had a great season too, and a lot to build from. It was a tough matchup to go into, and they're going to learn a lot from this. A lot of the younger guys that are going to be returning next year, and hopefully Mineral Ridge is able to take the next step.
It wasn't a lopsided game the whole time. Mineral Ridge actually hung tough for quite a bit, but eventually, when you're holding Canton Central down, you got to take advantage of some opportunities, try to score, and they couldn't. And eventually, Canton Central Catholic just broke those defensive walls and started to score in bunches in the second half.
Yeah, but congrats are in order to them as they're going to move on to play Mogador in the second round.
This next final, the biggest offensive output we saw in the playoffs this week, 62-49. United wins a shootout with Rootstown.
Huge win, and a first win for United, whatever, if I'm not mistaken.
Playoff victory in program history.
First playoff win ever. And you know what? That's a solid Rootstown team. And Rootstown has nothing to keep their heads low about. They put on a great show as well. This was, if you like offense, this was a game for you. You were probably thrilled the whole night. And these two teams were just heavyweights, just exchanging blows to each other. United,
I got one and two. You got one. I got one too. Bam, bam, bam.
United had some X factors though that came in. Luke Courtney, Grant Knight were the 2-1-2 combination that got Rootstown on the ropes and were able to deliver the knockout punch in the end.
You're telling me that the all-time leading receiver at United ended up being a big factor?
Come
on, that's too crazy.
Some big names for them, but yeah, that's a huge win for United as they're going to move on. to play the juggernaut themselves.
Right. They're going to get their slingshots out because they're going to be David in this matchup against the Goliath Kirtland.
Hey, I mean, we already know Kirtland's going to score, but if you could put up that many points United, you might have a shot.
Just get that stone, right? Stone to slingshot. It just took one stone to take down United. And all you need, take down Goliath. So all you need is that one stone and the faith to throw it. You just never know. That's why they play the game. United at Kirtland will be this week, and that one will be the 1 versus 8.
Yep. But congrats are in order. United on the victory.
Warren JFK, they were all
9.
They had 37-9. That is an awkward football score, and that it was surprised. Like, you don't see a lot of 37s. You don't see a lot of teams finish with 9 either. But 37-9 is your final score for JFK versus Fairport Harding.
Yeah, they kind of just wrapped up business. Fairport Harding, they were against Fairport Harding. They were able to hold them to defensively, and JFK just did what JFK does and just played a solid game, 4 quarters, and came away with the victory. And they were the one tree to fall that we were looking for going into the next round. Linda Courtney, I'm assuming the relative of Luke Courtney too. He had a great show that he put on the highlights of our week of the last week too. You could check that out on our socials.
Absolutely, make sure to check that out. The plays of the week brought to you by NST Sports Performance. So we go from 37-9 JFK over Fairport Harding to Lowville getting the 54-14 win over Steubenville Central Catholic. Rockets full boosters, launches a go, whatever you want, whatever rocket pun you want, it's there. And they did not miss a beat in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're right on schedule with their offense too. Another 50 banger, like it's nothing for them. It's like they're putting up basketball scores. It feels like getting ready for this season too. But Vinny Malone and company have just been impressive all season. Nothing
football team, because that basketball team is really defensive oriented. That they might outscore their basketball team at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I would like to see how many points the football team puts up. I know they had one game where they scored 21, so that might hurt their average, but we'll see.
It'll be interesting to see end of the season. But Lowville now set up with a Lucas team in the next round. Lucas actually upset Toronto 10-7.
Dangerous.
You said it too. Lucas is a dangerous team. This is going to be an interesting matchup for the Rockets.
They're just one of those programs that is, has tradition of winning in playoffs. So those kind of programs always know how to flip a switch when playoff time comes around. So it's a 10 seed, but don't be too fooled by that Bear squad that'll be coming for Lowville this week.
Absolutely not.
Are they the Bears?
Lucas?
Yes, they're the Bears. For a minute, I thought Blue Devils, but no, I'm pretty sure they're the Bears.
Maybe they're the Cubs. They might be the Cubs.
I know there's a bear in their logo.
It might be the Cubs.
The Cubs.
Bears don't sound. They might
Cubs. That sounds a little bit better.
Yeah. Or a golden bear or something. It might be something off-putting than Bears. I don't know if they're just the Bears.
We'll get our crafty research department on it. AKA Ty's laptop. 41-18. Danville gets the win over Wyndham to end the Bombers season.
Hey, it was
going to be tough for Wyndham.
Great run for Wyndham to get to the playoffs. Great run by Coach I and staff too to get them there despite the injuries. Wyndham did not let that waver them. They still got themselves on the path to the playoffs and definitely something to build off of going into the next season.
Southern gets the award for highest score on the YSN family in the playoffs so far. 65-21. They beat South Central in a battle in the South.
A team that we talked about is so defensive minded actually put up the most offensive points of the night. And that's just because maybe they were keeping that in their back pocket for the playoffs and say, oh, yeah, we could actually score a bunch now, too.
Right.
And Southern just did what they were supposed to do. And actually the 4-5 seeds both went chalk. And it was a lot of crazy upsets in this bracket, but not in this one. 4 versus 5 both win. Southern set up to take on Norwalk St. Paul, and they're going to go down to the Wigwam for a very interesting matchup. should be a good one too. Norwalk St. Paul, not a pushover team in the slightest.
Yeah, what can you imagine if because Norwalk St. Paul scored 64? So what if we get a 65-64 game?
Oh my god, just 120 plus points of offense.
I don't think Southern's defense is going to give up 64 points. But,
yeah, that's going to be pretty crazy if they did that.
That's actually the next final on our docket. St. Paul gets the win over Lisbon, 64-20. Lisbon, you'll watch that game and you'll watch how the score went. They answered every time St. Paul looked like they were going to take over the game. They never stopped fighting. Lisbon actually, I think, played pretty adequately considering the position they were put in.
Yeah, they were rolling in with a little bit of an injured squad too, trying to makeshift these teams, and a lot of guys stepping up, and a lot of guys I think being impressive to Coach Altamore. And it got to make you feel good going into future seasons, knowing that you got these guys ready and willing to step up. And they're able to do so, and they put on a pretty nice performance too. And they gave it their all, and they fought Norwalk St. Paul for a decent amount of time. And a lot to look forward to, I think, in Lisbon football in the next coming years.
We all know Springfield playoff team is different.
Oh, man.
They proved it too. Not a doubt in the mind. 42-0, they steamroll Matthews to advance to the playoffs.
They got the eye of the tiger as they're ready to battle the War Eagles, man. They really do. Like, it's you got to cue the Rocky music, man, because we're ready for these two teams to fall. JFK did their work, did business as the 1 seed, but we've been talking about this matchup. We've been dreaming about this matchup ever since Springfield dropped down, and we got it. And you feel like not that Springfield was looking through Matthews to JFK, but they were just hyper-focused. They knew what they needed to do, and it's almost kind of just like it's kind of one of those intimidation factors to the Eagles, letting them know, oh, yeah, we're ready for you. Don't worry.
The Springfield team, man. The Tigers, who are Auburn, will go, like you said, War Eagle. It's funny that you said that because obviously it's the Auburn Tigers, but for some reason their chance is War Eagle.
I got it. I got him. I got it all. I tried to tie everything together as much as I could with everything.
Ty's over here like
I tried to just plan everything out. But we talked about it. The second Springfield dropped to D7, we knew this could be potentially a roadblock. They would be a roadblock for each other. And if there's ever been a case where JFK was in danger of not making it out of the region, this is probably the closest, I think, case that's going to be in the last few years that we've seen from Warren JFK.
All right, we go into Riverside, who was one of the most respected teams in that division going into this game. They proved why everyone gives them so much respect. 63-6, they beat Ashtabula Lakeside.
Yeah, Riverside definitely flexed their muscles too. And congratulations to Riverside as beating Lakeside and moving on to the next round too. Dragons just kind of were dealing, I think, with their own set of injuries too, and they just could never stop the downward slope that they started on towards the middle of the season.
And that is your final score. Final score from the Football Friday for the games that we had.
And a lot of games now set up. We talked about the premier matchups. I think that Struthers West Branch matchup is going to be great over in Division 4. I think JFK Springfield might be one of the highlights of the night because I think 8-seeded Springfield, who has now won 7 consecutive football games, is going to give Warren JFK all that they can handle and more. I'm excited for that matchup. I'm excited to see how the Eagles are able to handle the Tigers in one of the first matchups that hopefully of many that we get in this division.
All right, so now we go to the soccer games that were taken underway. We had 2 district championships awarded. Poland won 2-1 in their district championship game. First district championship for Poland since 2004. And get this, it is the first time since 1994. First time since 1994 that both Poland girls soccer and boys soccer are going into regionals the same year.
And I mean, that's impressive to say the least. And I was actually getting a chance to talk with couple of the basketball coaches talking with Coach Blanche a little bit about it, and he was saying, that's one of the good problems that they're having right now is that waiting to get some of these girls that are on this soccer team that are having a heck of a season right now. And, that's what you love to see. And they're all rooting for them, too, on that basketball team, rooting for Poland going forward. And both Bulldogs, boys and girls teams having a whale of a season in the soccer field.
And then Howland went into penalty kicks, but they got the win as well. They are district champions. And it'll actually be Poland versus Howland in the regional semifinal.
And I mean, Poland set up, I think, in all YSN matchups on both fronts right now, if I'm not mistaken. So we love it as well. We're going to be winners however it rolls because we're going to get a YSN team that wins.
YSN is set up in these soccer regionals because you have, on the girls' side, we're guaranteed a regional finalist in Division 3 and Division 2, which are the only YSN teams we actually have left because we have West Branch versus Canfield in Division 2. That game will be Tuesday, or some people say tomorrow at 6:00.
Some people.
At Boardman. And then Lakeview versus Poland will be tomorrow at 5:00 at Ravenna.
Battle of Blue Bulldogs on the blue field.
So we're guaranteed a regional finalist in Division 2 in the girls' side. We're guaranteed a regional finalist in Division 3 in the girls' side. And then on Division 2 in soccer on the boys' side, Poland versus Howland is going to be at Howland High School. Go figure that. Home game in the regional semifinal for the Tigers as the 16-1 Tigers play the 17-2-1 Poland Bulldogs. Howland defeated Poland on August 15th, 3-0 in Warren. And then you go into Division 3 soccer as you'll have Cardinal Mooney. They will take on Wycliffe at Boardman High School at 6 on Wednesday. And then that is that'll do it for your soccer regional semifinals that YSN has a sorry, there was a misprint. I thought that was weird that Howland and Poland would be playing each other in Howland. That game will be in Streetsboro.
I was gonna say that is.
I was like, wait a minute, time out. Something smells fishy.
Poland though able to win both those games. I love the Poland Lakeview matchup on the blue field, Blue Bulldogs, blue field. It's gonna be a great.
They can't wear their blue, right? They both have to wear their because Poland has the all blue uniforms. Like if they do that. If anyone's broadcasting that game, good luck. 1. 2, that's a competitive advantage because your opponent's not going to be able to see you.
And Howland's hoping that the year 2022 has a similar ring to it as a few years ago.
I get what you did there, ring, because they're going to get some rings.
But this is going to be an interesting season. And we always talk about this with soccer teams in our area that no matter what, every year we always have a local team that can get to that state level. And it seems like we're going to have a good chance of doing it yet again.
We're going to have 3 guaranteed chances. And then 4 if Mooney gets to win over Wycliffe in Division 3 for boys. So we could have, after Wednesday, on Thursday's show, I could be talking about 4 teams that have 1 win to get by to get into a state tournament. So
I tell you what, Coach Britton is the perfect guy for that matchup too. I love what he brings to the table for that Mooney boys team, and if there's anyone that could get past Wycliffe, it's going to be him.
This Cardinals team is hungry, right? Because they feel like they were right there at in the state championship competitive mindset last year. They lost to Crestview in overtime. Crestview went all the way to the state championship. So Mooney definitely feels like they were a state championship caliber team last year, and they brought almost everybody back. They played a schedule that was just as hard, if not harder, and they're looking to fix what happened last year this year. They'll play the team that beat Crestview in Wycliffe 2-1. So they were kind of nixed out of that tournament rematch, but remember they beat Crestview in the regular season this year, did Mooney. So Wycliffe gets the win, but Mooney gets to play them to avenge our YSN family in Crestview.
So we get a chance to see it, and it's going to be fun to see. And Mooney is one of those teams. If they're able to win this game too, they're going to be more than well prepared for the next round.
In volleyball action over the weekend, we had 3 teams that were fighting for a district championship. Unfortunately for the YSN family, only one of them prevailed. Jefferson got swept by Notre Dame Cathedral Latin And I said it before, the NDCL has, in my opinion, one of the best players in the state of Ohio. In oh geez, first name escaping me now. Chloe. It's a C name. Juravicious. I know her last name, but Nebraska commit for Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, and that's, if you're a football player, that's as if you're signing on to go play for Ohio State if you're playing for Nebraska in volleyball. Blue blood program in volleyball. Very used to winning championships. They have multiple Olympians that have went to Nebraska, and they're in a Big Ten conference that is just loaded with really good teams. So Jordan Vicious flexed her muscles like he always does, and Jefferson actually battled pretty well. None of the sets got below 25-18, and I think the last one was 25-20. So Jefferson actually battled NDCL pretty well despite getting swept. The score that was most surprising to me was Marlington really took care of business and beat up Girard 25-13, 25-14, 25-20.
I gotta give respect to these Lady Dukes. I've gotten a chance to see them, and I saw what they were doing against teams like West Branch and Salem and company in that conference. They're the real deal, man.
That was play Fitch, right? And they took care of Fitch pretty easily.
They took care of Fitch really well too at Fitch, and I mean it's a Lady Dukes team they are very, very talented and very potent. I mean, all the way around. You talk about tough to score against, near impossible to score against. Their liberos get down and dirty, and they will save, it feels like, almost everything that you try to swing on.
And once again, the first name escaping me, but the Graphis,
yeah,
sophomore outside hitter. Oh my gosh, is she good? And then obviously you have Chelsea Evanic, who is seemingly good at everything that she does. She's in the middle, and then they have a really good setter as well. It is a really good team, but I still expected those matches to be closer. Obviously, it was just one of those days where if you're not getting momentum in volleyball for Girard's side, you can't really muster up anything, and that must have happened for the Indians. I wasn't there live, so I can't say with clarity what happened or how the Dukes were able to neutralize that Girard attack so well to win in such decisive fashion in the first two sets, especially with 25-13, 25-14. But
Jackson Hilliard is the libero for Marlington too. I want to shout her out because she is phenomenal.
I remember I did their game at West Branch, and she had to leave the game for like 10 points because she got blood on her jersey. And it's a rule that I didn't know in volleyball. You cannot switch out numbers. So she couldn't get someone else's away jersey and stay the libero. So once you're locked into that number as a roster, you can't switch. So she had to, and one of the JV girls was like running like a pit crew, grabbed her jersey, ran to the bathroom, washed off the blood, came back, and put the jersey back on.
A warrior. I mean, a warrior in all senses. She gets down and dirty. She saves about, like I said, it feels like almost everything that you try to swing on her. And she's not afraid to get down and get those bumps, get those scratches and bruises to make
Marlington's in a time right now where their girls' athletics is just on another level. Volleyball, basketball, softball, they're all extremely good.
Good time to be a Duke.
It's a good time to be a Duke, especially on the girls' side of athletics. Then we had Crestview, who was going up against their second straight state-ranked team. They beat the 9th-ranked team in the state in Lakeview in the district semifinals. Then they had Kirtland, who was ranked 13th in the state, and they played so good. Both teams played exceptionally well. This was a very tight match. First two sets went 26-24, 25-23. Kirtland won set 3, 25-23, and then Crestview had a late spurt in set 4 to win 25-17. But even that set was back and forth the whole time until Crestview came out and scored, I think, like 5 points in a row to kind of end it. But it was like 20-17. Kirtland was coming back. Felt like they had some momentum. Crestview called the timeout and then came out and scored 5 points in a row to end it. Abby Emsch broke the program record for kills in a match. So she had herself an amazing district tournament because in the first match, in the Lakeview matchup, she broke the program record for blocks in a match. And then in the Kirtland game, she breaks the record for kills in a match. 34 kills for Abby Emsch. And she did a lot in the back row too because she had 24 digs. So an emphatic double-double for her. And then Grace Hour had 20 kills. So you had a combined 54 kills from Abby Emsch and Grace Hour with those two combined.
You also look at it too. At Gray Sauer, a triple-double with 20 kills, 25 digs, 29 assists. She also had 4 aces and 3 blocks. So really everywhere in the stat sheet.
Yeah, and those 4 aces were big because she's kind of the ace queen for Crestview. And both teams' serve receive was actually pretty consistent. Kirtland had 1 ace, 1 service error. So they were keeping every serve in play. Crestview was receiving well, and then Kirtland was really, for the most part, receiving serves really well. It was just high-level volleyball. Really fun to watch. Crestview advances to the regional semifinals on Thursday. They will play the one first-ranked team in the state in Lake Catholic from Mentor Lake Catholic on Thursday in Barberton.
Another chance for the glory. Let's go, Crestview.
We were so close last year against one of the best teams in the state, Independence. They proved they can play at that level. We'll see if they can do it here today. That'll do it for today's episode of Running Point. We'll be back tomorrow from 1 to 2 with more sports talk. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Casual Sports Podcast is next, and then Power Hour has you hooked up from 3 to 4. We'll see you tomorrow from 1 to 2.